Hello, and welcome back to part 3 of how I built my own home studio. Let's briefly recap. When I left you last, I had just completed hanging the first layer of sound-absorbing blankets around the inside of the vocal booth structure, which you see here. And then, I conducted a pre-final sound test of the incompleted vocal booth, which demonstrated the effectiveness of the sound-absorbing blankets, even though the structure wasn't completely covered. I went over plans to further sound treat the room, like covering the closet door opening and adding some other things. Now let's take a look at the completed vocal booth. Here's the completed vocal booth with the 2 layers around the sides and 2 ceiling layers. The ceiling was a bit challenging because this is a 5'5" structure, and of course my arms aren't 5 feet long. And I didn't have anything like tarp clamps. So what I did was I ended up using some hair clips around the sides I wasn't currently working on to hold the blankets in place while I secured the sides I was working on by using some safety pins, which you see here. And once I added the second layer, it concealed the safety pins nicely. Then I folded that layer neatly, which gave it this hut-like feature. And I must say, it's coming out pretty good. Now, let's check out the inside of the booth. As you can see, I've added some lights around the ceiling of the structure, everywhere except the entrance, where blankets will constantly be pulled back. These lights are called fairy lights, and they have switches to turn them on and off, which you see here. These lights aren't actually blue, but because the inside of the blankets are blue, these white fairy lights are casting a blue glow, which is kind of cool because it gives it that studio vibe feel. Yeah, so far so good. I must say I am liking how it's turning out. However, I am planning on adding some more lighting to this booth for those times when I prefer it to be just a bit brighter, and for when I do collab with someone who may prefer more light, which I'll reveal the results of that in the next and the final video. But I am really happy with the results so far. It's looking pretty good. Now, let's go back to the outside of the booth. Now, using double blankets did weigh the structure down a bit. So to give the booth more stability, I'll be adding some sandbag weights to the bottom of the 4 corners of the structure. Now let's take a look at some things I'll be doing to further sound treat this room. I hung blankets over the windows to help deaden some of the sound that might come from outside. Now let's keep in mind this room is sound treated, not soundproof, and so any sound deadening materials will help. So I took one sound absorbing blanket, cut it in half, hung a piece over each window. Although I did seal the ends, it didn't look neat enough, so I will be adding some sound absorbing blackout curtains over these blankets. I also added a blanket over the closet door opening to keep echo from coming out of there. And as you can see, this project is coming along. Now, again, the blankets are pretty heavy. So to ensure the stability of the vocal booth, I took a step further. And let me show you what I did. So what I did was I took some Velcro ties, which you can't see because thankfully the blankets are concealing it. But I secured one end to the ceiling part of the structure, and I put a hole in the other end. And I hung them over these adhesive hooks that are being used to hold the blanket over the closet opening. And this really stabilized the vocal structure. This structure's in place. I mean, it's not moving at all. Now, let's check out how it sounds. The booth structure is complete. The booth structure is complete. Sounds pretty good. Now on to the panels. Now I did search out some people to have some panels built for me, but as it turns out, that can be a bit pricey. So I decided to come up with a budget-friendly idea that would work just as well. I purchased these foam panels from AeroZoom, which was highly recommended on YouTube. And I'll be affixing them to this 20 by 30 foam poster board, which I'll link both in the description. As you can see, I'm going with the black and white checkerboard design. I'm using command strips. However, I did go back and use some adhesive spray glue because on the first panel, some of the command strips weren't holding very well, and I didn't want to have any issues with them falling off later. Now this turned out to be a really cost-effective way for me to build my own panel boards to sound treat this room. And that'll do it. Easy peasy. Now I already purchased everything I need to complete my home studio, which I'll reveal in the fourth and final video. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. Blessings.
You always catch when I fall. Jesus, through the ups and the downs, I depend on you through it all. Whenever I stop to think on just how far you'll go, my heart gets overjoyed and it just starts to overflow. I'm so grateful, I'm so thankful. They told me taste and see that the Lord is good, and I just want a plate full. So sweet thou art, my soul just loves your taste. The aroma of your grace is amazing.